Hello, and welcome back to Code Your English. I'm really glad you're here today, taking this time for yourself. Before we dive into today's topic, I want you to take a deep breath, relax, and just be present for a few moments. In this busy world, it's easy to rush through life, to focus on what everyone else is doing, or to compare yourself with others. But this moment, right now, is yours. And the topic we're going to explore today is something that can truly change how you live your life: upgrading your personal standards. So, what do I mean by personal standards? Simply put, personal standards are the expectations you set for yourself, how you act, how you treat others, and how much effort you put into your goals. They are like invisible rules you follow, whether you realize it or not. Personal standards influence every part of your life: the quality of your work, your relationships, your health, even your sense of happiness and self-respect. Imagine someone who always settles for the easiest choice, who says, "good enough," instead of striving for better. Over time, that choice affects everything: their career, their friendships, their confidence. On the other hand, someone who consistently holds themselves to higher standards develops a life that feels meaningful and intentional. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever wondered if you're holding yourself back by aiming too low? Maybe you don't even notice it at first. Perhaps you accept small mistakes, ignore little opportunities, or tell yourself that something is good enough when deep down you know you could do more. This is not about perfection. It's not about being the best all the time. It's about respect. Respect for your time, your effort, and your potential. It's about living a life that feels honest and true to who you are. In today's episode, we're going to take a journey together. First, we'll explore what personal standards really mean and how they affect your mindset and the way you see yourself. Then, we'll look at the common barriers that stop people from raising their standards, like fear of failure, self-doubt, and perfectionism. I'll share practical ways to shift your mindset, build strong habits, and deal with setbacks without giving up. Finally, we'll talk about measuring progress and celebrating small wins, because upgrading your standards is not a one-time thing. It's a process, a journey, and a practice. By the end of this episode, my goal is for you to feel motivated, inspired, and ready to take one small action that can make a difference. Even just one small step today can start a ripple effect that changes your life over time. So, stay with me, listen carefully, and think about your own experiences. Ask yourself questions, reflect, and see which ideas you want to bring into your life. Let's begin this journey together, here on Code Your English, and discover how raising your personal standards can help you live a life that feels more intentional, more confident, and more truly yours. Understanding personal standards. When we talk about personal standards, it's important to understand what they really are. Personal standards are the expectations you set for yourself in every part of your life: your work, your relationships, your daily habits, and even how you treat your own time and energy. They are different from rules that others give you or expectations from society. These standards come from within. They are like your personal compass, guiding your actions, your decisions, and the way you respond to challenges. When your standards are clear and high, you naturally make choices that reflect respect for yourself. But when your standards are low or unclear, it's easy to accept less than you deserve, or to let small problems grow into bigger ones. It is also important to understand the difference between standards and goals. Many people confuse these two ideas. A goal is something you want to achieve. It has an end point, like finishing a course, running a marathon, or saving a certain amount of money. A personal standard, on the other hand, is ongoing. It is about how you show up every day. For example, a goal might be, I want to get a promotion this year. But a personal standard would be, I always complete my work carefully and on time, and I try to improve every day. Goals are destinations. Standards are the quality and consistency of the journey. By focusing on standards, you create habits and routines that eventually make your goals easier to reach. To make this more real, let's consider a few examples. Imagine someone who is always late to meetings or appointments. Maybe they think it's not a big deal, or they assume others will always wait. Over time, this behavior communicates a lack of respect for their own time and the time of others. Or think about someone who tolerates clutter in their home or workspace. At first, it seems harmless, but slowly, it can make them feel stressed, distracted, and less motivated. Another example is someone who gives only half-hearted effort at work or in their studies, doing just enough to get by. They might meet the minimum requirements, but they rarely experience a sense of pride or satisfaction, and opportunities for growth often pass them by. These examples show that personal standards aren't just about big achievements. They affect the small, daily choices that shape your life. It's also worth noting that personal standards are deeply connected to self-respect. When you hold yourself to higher standards, you naturally demand more from yourself, but not in a harsh or punishing way. Instead, you act with intention. You notice your habits and behaviors, and you decide whether they reflect the kind of person you want to be. On the other hand, low or unclear standards can limit your potential because they often allow you to accept mediocrity, make excuses, or avoid responsibility. Now, I want you to take a moment and reflect on your own life. Think about the areas where you are most relaxed with yourself. Are there times when you accept less than you deserve? Maybe you ignore small problems, procrastinate, or don't challenge yourself enough. Ask yourself, are my standards serving me, or are they limiting me? It's a simple but powerful question. The answer can help you understand where change is needed. Even small adjustments in your standards can create a big impact over time. For example, consistently arriving on time, keeping your space organized, or putting more focus into your daily tasks may seem minor at first. But these habits slowly build confidence, efficiency, and a sense of self-respect that spreads into other areas of your life. Remember, personal standards are not about being perfect or never making mistakes. They are about being intentional and consistent. They are about treating yourself with respect, making choices that align with your values, and refusing to settle for less than what helps you grow. By understanding your standards and observing how they affect your life, you begin to see opportunities for improvement, not in a judgmental way, but as a path toward becoming the best version of yourself. So today, take a small moment to think about your own standards. Where are you holding yourself to high expectations? Where could you improve? The answers might surprise you. And remember, this is not a one-time reflection. It's the first step in a process. Understanding your personal standards is the foundation of growth, because before you can raise your standards, you need to see clearly where you stand. By doing this, you set the stage for meaningful change, and you start to create a life that feels more aligned with your values, your goals, and your true potential. The cost of low standards. When we think about personal standards, it's easy to focus on the positive side, the benefits of raising them, the sense of pride, and the growth we can achieve. But it's just as important to understand the cost of low standards. Low standards aren't always dramatic or obvious at first. Often they sneak into our lives quietly, shaping our habits, our choices, and even the way we see ourselves. Over time, they can create real consequences: missed opportunities, stagnation, and even a deep sense of self-doubt. Let's start with missed opportunities. When someone consistently chooses the easiest path, avoids challenges, or does only what is necessary, they may seem comfortable in the short term. But in the long run, doors start to close without them even realizing it. For example, imagine a student who always does the bare minimum in school. They submit assignments late, study only enough to pass, and avoid participating in class discussions. At first, it seems harmless. They pass exams and get by. But later, when opportunities arise, like scholarships, advanced projects, or recognition from teachers, this student may find themselves overlooked. Their choices to settle for the easy way have limited their potential and narrowed their possibilities. The same principle applies in the workplace. Think of an employee who does only what is asked, never goes the extra mile, and avoids taking responsibility for bigger tasks. They may feel safe because they avoid stress or criticism, but over time, their career stalls. Promotions, raises, and leadership opportunities often go to those who consistently put in effort and show initiative. Low standards don't just affect results. They affect how others perceive you and how you perceive yourself. When you settle too often, you start to believe that this is enough or I can't do more, which can gradually turn into a mindset of limitation. This brings us to an important point. Low standards are not just habits. They can become a mindset. Habits are actions we repeat, sometimes automatically. But when low standards turn into a mindset, they affect our thoughts, our confidence, and the way we approach life. For instance, someone who consistently tolerates mediocrity may begin to believe that they are incapable of more, or that they don't deserve better. Over time, this mindset reinforces itself. It affects decisions about relationships, health, work, and personal growth. Even when opportunities appear, this mindset can hold someone back because they've unconsciously trained themselves to settle, to doubt, or to fear failure. Personal stories can help make this real. I once knew someone who worked in a small office. Every day, he completed his tasks quickly, without paying attention to quality, because he thought efficiency meant speed. At first, he was praised for finishing work fast. But over time, mistakes piled up, projects suffered, and his reputation declined. When bigger opportunities appeared, he wasn't ready. And he realized that his low standards had limited his growth in ways he hadn't anticipated. Similarly, in daily life, tolerating small things, clutter, disorganization, lateness, might seem minor, but these small choices accumulate and affect confidence, motivation, and energy. Now, I want you to reflect for a moment. Think about your own life. When have you accepted less than you deserve? Maybe you settled for a job that didn't challenge you, a friendship that didn't uplift you, or even a personal habit that kept you from improving. What impact did that choice have? And how did it feel inside? Did it make you proud, or did it leave you with a quiet sense of frustration or regret? Asking these questions is not about guilt. It's about awareness. When you see clearly the cost of low standards, You can begin to make intentional choices to raise them. Understanding this cost is powerful because it shows that raising your standards is not just about achieving more. It's about protecting your time, your energy, and your self-respect. It's about creating a life where you don't have to settle. When you hold yourself to higher standards, you open doors, build confidence, and send a message to yourself and the world that you value your potential. Even small improvements in your daily standards, like completing tasks fully, being punctual, or giving your best effort, start to add up and create a positive momentum that affects every area of life. So take a moment today and reflect honestly. Where in your life are low standards limiting you? Where could raising your expectations change your outcomes? Awareness is the first step, and once you see the hidden cost of low standards, you can start making choices that align with the person you truly want to become. Common barriers to raising standards. Even when we understand the importance of raising our personal standards, it's not always easy to put that knowledge into action. There are common barriers that can stop us, often without us even realizing it. These obstacles can appear in many forms, such as fear of failure, perfectionism, self-doubt, societal pressure, or even past setbacks that have left a mark on our confidence. Each of these barriers can quietly hold us back, making it difficult to step up and take the actions needed to improve our lives. Fear of failure is one of the most powerful barriers. Many people avoid challenges because they are worried about making mistakes or looking bad in front of others. This fear can be so strong that it prevents them from starting at all. For example, imagine someone who wants to learn a new skill, like public speaking or writing, but keeps delaying it because they are afraid of criticism or failure. They may tell themselves, "I'm not ready yet," or "I'll start next week," and weeks turn into months. The fear of failing keeps them stuck in the same place, even though small steps could lead to progress and growth. Perfectionism is another obstacle that can quietly sabotage our efforts. Perfectionists often set unrealistically high standards for themselves, believing that anything less than perfect is unacceptable. While this might sound like high personal standards, it can actually be limiting. When perfectionism takes over, people avoid taking action because they are afraid of doing something imperfectly. They may spend so much time planning or worrying that they never actually start. This creates a cycle where nothing gets done, and the opportunity to grow slips away. Self-doubt is closely connected to fear and perfectionism. It's that voice inside that says, "I can't do this," or "I'm not good enough." Self-doubt can come from past experiences, negative feedback, or even comparisons to others. When we believe that we are not capable, it becomes difficult to hold ourselves to higher standards because we don't feel worthy or competent. We might settle for less or avoid challenges simply to protect ourselves from disappointment. Societal pressure can also be a subtle but powerful barrier. Sometimes people hesitate to raise their standards because they fear judgment from others or worry about standing out. For example, someone may avoid taking a leadership role or pursuing an ambitious goal because family, friends, or colleagues might criticize or not support them. This pressure can keep people confined within the expectations of others, rather than allowing them to pursue their own path and higher standards. Past setbacks are another common obstacle. When someone has tried something before and failed, it can create a mental block that makes it hard to try again. These experiences can leave a lasting impression, making us believe that failure is inevitable or that we're not capable of more. While setbacks are natural and a part of learning, they can still discourage people from stepping forward, raising their standards, or taking risks that could lead to growth. Let me share a relatable story. A few years ago, I wanted to start a new hobby, learning to play the guitar. I was excited at first, but after struggling with a few basic chords, I started thinking, I'll never get this right. Maybe I'm not good at music. For a while, I didn't practice at all. I was afraid of failing and looking foolish in front of my friends. But later, I decided to try a small daily routine, just 10 minutes a day. Slowly, I improved. What I learned from this experience is that fear, self-doubt, and past struggles are normal, but they don't have to stop you. The key is to start small, take action, and be consistent. Now, I want you to take a moment and reflect. What stops you from starting? Have you ever been so afraid of doing something wrong that you didn't even try? Are there voices in your head, past experiences, or pressures from others that make you hesitate? These questions are not meant to make you feel guilty. They are meant to create awareness. Once you identify these barriers, you can start to address them. You can take small steps, adjust your mindset, and gradually raise your personal standards without being overwhelmed by fear or doubt. Recognizing these barriers is an essential part of growth. Once you understand what holds you back, you can develop strategies to overcome them. You can remind yourself that mistakes are part of learning, that progress is more important than perfection, and that your worth is not defined by failure or other people's opinions. By becoming aware of these obstacles and taking small, deliberate actions to move past them, you can build momentum, increase confidence, and step closer to the life you want to create. The mindset shift from comfort to growth. Up to this point, we've talked about what personal standards are, the cost of low standards, and the barriers that often hold us back. Now, let's focus on something even more powerful, the mindset shift that allows you to move from comfort to growth. Changing your mindset is the foundation of raising your personal standards because it affects the way you see yourself, the choices you make, and how you respond to challenges. Growth almost always requires discomfort and self-awareness. It's natural to want to stay in your comfort zone, a place that feels safe and familiar. But true improvement happens when you step outside that comfort zone, even just a little at a time. Discomfort signals that you are stretching your limits and learning something new, and self-awareness helps you notice where your habits, thoughts, and attitudes may be holding you back. One important mindset principle is consistency over intensity. Many people think that growth requires extreme effort or sudden dramatic change. For example, someone might believe they need to study for 5 hours straight every day to improve their English, or work out for 2 hours every day to get fit. While effort is important, extreme intensity can lead to burnout or discouragement. Instead, focusing on small, consistent actions produces lasting results. 10 minutes of practice every day, or a small effort to improve your behavior consistently, can create more growth over time than occasional bursts of extreme effort. Consistency builds habits, habits build standards, and standards build your life. Another key principle is self-respect over approval. Too often, we let others' opinions control our actions. We might avoid challenges because we fear judgment, or we settle for less than we deserve to keep others happy. Growth requires putting yourself first, not selfishly, but intentionally. When you act from self-respect, you honor your time, energy, and potential. This doesn't mean ignoring feedback from others, but it does mean that your standards come from your values and goals, not the expectations or approval of others. The third mindset principle is progress over perfection. Many people get stuck because they focus on doing things perfectly or achieving flawless results. This is where perfectionism becomes a barrier. Growth is a process, and every small step forward counts. Learning to focus on progress, even small improvements, helps you stay motivated and confident. For example, someone learning English might celebrate reading one page of a book every day, or practicing a new word in conversation, rather than waiting until they can speak perfectly. Over time, these small steps create real growth. To make this more concrete, let's look at an example. Imagine a person who wants to improve their fitness. At first, they struggle to run even a short distance or lift a moderate weight. If they focus only on perfection or compare themselves to others, they might quit. But if they adopt a growth mindset, they start small, perhaps running for 10 minutes 3 times a week or doing simple exercises at home. Over weeks and months, they gradually increase their stamina, strength, and confidence. The same applies to skills or relationships. A small, consistent effort to communicate better, learn a new skill, or listen more carefully can produce meaningful improvement over time. Each small success builds confidence and reinforces a mindset focused on growth. Now, I want you to reflect on your own life. Which small change could show yourself that you are capable of more? Maybe it's waking up a bit earlier to study, practicing a skill for just 10 minutes, or speaking up in a meeting or conversation when you normally stay quiet. These small actions may seem minor, but they create a signal to your mind. I am capable. I am growing. Each choice moves you closer to living according to your personal standards and away from stagnation. Remember, growth is rarely comfortable, but it is always possible. Discomfort is not a sign that you are failing. It's a sign that you are learning and stretching. By focusing on consistency over intensity, self-respect over approval, and progress over perfection, you begin to transform your mindset. And when your mindset shifts, your actions follow, your habits improve, and your life begins to reflect the higher standards you are setting for yourself. This shift is not instant, but with awareness, effort, and small daily choices, it becomes a natural part of who you are. Habits and routines that support higher standards. Once we have the right mindset, the next step in raising our personal standards is building habits and routines that support them. Habits and routines are like the foundation of a house. No matter how strong the walls are, without a solid foundation, everything becomes unstable. When we create daily practices that reflect our personal standards, we make growth automatic, not just something we try to remember or push ourselves to do occasionally. Consistency, supported by thoughtful routines, helps us live in alignment with our values and goals. One practical strategy is setting clear expectations for yourself. This might sound simple, but many people fail to define what they really expect of themselves, and that vagueness leads to inconsistent effort. For example, instead of saying, "I want to be healthier," you can define a clear standard. I will exercise for 20 minutes at least 3 times a week and eat vegetables at every meal. When your expectations are specific, measurable, and realistic, it's much easier to follow through. Clear expectations act like a personal contract, a commitment to yourself that you can track and respect. Another powerful strategy is creating supportive routines. Our daily routines often shape our success more than occasional effort. Think about morning routines, for instance. Many successful people, from CEOs to athletes, start their day with a structured routine that sets a positive tone. This might include exercise, journaling, planning the day, or reading something inspiring. By starting the day with intentional actions, they are not relying on motivation alone. They are embedding their personal standards into their everyday life. You don't have to copy someone else exactly, but designing a routine that reflects your priorities can make a huge difference in consistency and results. Accountability is another key factor in maintaining high standards. Sharing your goals or habits with someone you trust can increase your commitment. This could be a friend, a colleague, or even an online community. When someone else knows about your goals, you are more likely to follow through because you want to respect both yourself and the trust you've shared. Accountability helps you notice when you're slipping and encourages reflection and adjustment. It's a simple yet powerful tool to reinforce your standards. It's also important to limit toxic influences that can undermine your growth. This doesn't just mean negative people. It can also mean harmful environments, distracting habits, or even mindless consumption of media that lowers your energy or focus. For instance, constantly scrolling social media or watching shows late into the night can interfere with your goals, reduce your productivity, and weaken your personal standards. By identifying these influences and minimizing them, you create a cleaner mental and physical space for growth and consistency. Let me share a personal example. A few years ago, I wanted to improve my productivity and learning every day. At first, I struggled because my evenings were full of random distractions, social media, unplanned tasks, and irregular sleep. Then, I decided to set a clear standard. I would spend 30 minutes each evening reviewing my goals, planning the next day, and reading something meaningful. I also limited late-night scrolling and created a small habit of writing down one thing I did well each day. Over time, this routine not only improved my productivity, but it also increased my confidence and self-respect. I realized that small, consistent actions aligned with my personal standards could transform my daily life. Now, I want you to reflect on your own habits. What is one habit you can upgrade today to match your goals? Maybe it's waking up earlier to practice English, exercising a few minutes daily, journaling, or preparing your workspace each morning. Even one small change, when done consistently, can create a ripple effect across your life. The key is to start small. Choose something realistic and follow through. As these habits build, they naturally raise your standards because you are showing yourself that you are capable of consistent effort, intentional living, and growth. Remember, habits and routines are not about rigid rules or pressure. They are about supporting yourself to live according to your values and goals. They reduce friction, make high standards easier to maintain, and create momentum for continued growth. By setting clear expectations, building supportive routines, using accountability, and limiting toxic influences, you are creating a life where your personal standards are lived naturally, day by day. Embracing setbacks and learning from mistakes. As we continue our journey of raising personal standards, it's important to talk about something that often scares people: failure. Many of us avoid challenges, new experiences, or higher expectations because we fear making mistakes. But here's the truth: failure is not the enemy. In fact, it is a natural and essential part of growth. Every successful person has faced setbacks, made errors, or experienced moments where things didn't go as planned. What separates those who grow from those who stagnate is not the absence of failure, but the way they respond to it. Embracing setbacks and learning from mistakes is a crucial step in living up to your personal standards. Failure can feel uncomfortable, frustrating, or even discouraging, but it also carries lessons that can help us improve and become stronger. When you fail, you are given valuable feedback about what doesn't work, what needs adjustment, or where your efforts might be lacking. The key is to view failure not as a reflection of your worth or ability, but as a necessary part of the learning process. Without mistakes, it is very hard to grow because we never discover our limits or the areas where we can improve. Let me share a personal example to make this more real. A few years ago, I decided to speak at a local event. I prepared my speech carefully, but when I got on stage, I stumbled over my words and forgot parts of my script. At first, I felt embarrassed and wanted to avoid speaking in public ever again. But instead of giving up, I reflected on what went wrong. I realized I needed more practice, better preparation, and a way to stay calm under pressure. I decided to take small steps, practicing in front of a mirror, recording myself, and speaking in front of friends. Over time, I became more confident, my speeches improved, and I even started leading workshops. That initial setback didn't stop me. It taught me exactly what I needed to work on. We can see similar examples in famous stories, too. Many successful people, from entrepreneurs to artists, have faced repeated failures before achieving their goals. J.K. Rowling, for example, had her first Harry Potter manuscript rejected multiple times before it was accepted. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before inventing a practical light bulb. What stands out is not that they avoided mistakes, but that they refused to give up. Their resilience allowed them to learn from setbacks, improve continuously, and eventually succeed. This brings us to an important point. Raising your standards is not about being perfect or never failing. It is about not giving up, even when things go wrong. Every setback is an opportunity to practice resilience, to reflect on what can be done differently, and to grow stronger in the process. When you embrace failure as part of the journey, you stop fearing mistakes and start seeing them as stepping stones toward improvement. Now, I want you to reflect on your own experiences. Think about your last setback, failure, or mistake. It could be small, like missing a deadline, or larger, like failing an exam or not achieving a goal. Ask yourself, what lesson can my last setback teach me? Perhaps it reveals a habit you need to change, a skill you need to practice, or an attitude that needs adjustment. The key is to view setbacks with curiosity rather than judgment, and to take one actionable lesson from them. Remember, resilience is built one small step at a time. Each time you face a setback and continue moving forward, you strengthen your ability to handle challenges in the future. By normalizing failure and treating mistakes as opportunities to learn, you are not just improving your skills, you are also reinforcing your personal standards. You are telling yourself, I value my growth, I respect my potential, and I refuse to settle. Over time, this mindset makes challenges less intimidating, mistakes less discouraging, and success more achievable. So the next time you face a setback, take a deep breath and ask yourself what you can learn from it. Use that lesson to improve, adjust, and keep moving forward. Remember, personal growth is a journey, not a straight path. Each mistake is a guide, and each setback is an opportunity to raise your standards step by step with courage and resilience. measuring progress and celebrating wins. As we continue on the journey of raising personal standards, it's important to remember that growth is not just about effort, it's also about awareness and reflection. One of the most effective ways to maintain motivation and reinforce high standards is by measuring progress and celebrating wins, even small ones. Without noticing improvements, it's easy to feel like nothing is changing, even when you are making steady progress. By keeping track of your actions and achievements, you build a positive cycle of reinforcement that encourages continued growth and boosts confidence. Measuring progress doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as observing your own behaviors, tracking daily habits, or writing down small improvements in a journal. For example, if you are working on improving your English, you might note that today you used a new word correctly in conversation or understood a part of a podcast without translating it in your head. If you are developing personal standards in your work or studies, you might notice that you completed a task more efficiently than yesterday, or that you spoke up in a meeting when you normally stay quiet. Each of these small observations is a signal that you are moving forward, even if the progress feels gradual. Celebrating small wins is just as important as tracking progress. Many people focus only on big achievements, like completing a project or reaching a major goal, and forget to acknowledge the smaller steps that make those achievements possible. Celebrating wins is not about bragging or seeking approval. It's about recognizing your effort and commitment. For example, you might reward yourself for consistently following a new habit for a week, or for completing a difficult task without procrastinating. These small celebrations reinforce positive behavior and make it more likely that you will continue to act in alignment with your personal standards. A practical way to do this is through journaling. Each day, write down 1 or 2 things you did well, no matter how small. This simple habit trains your mind to notice progress and creates a record you can look back on to see how far you've come. Another idea is sharing your progress with a friend or mentor. Talking about small successes out loud not only motivates you, but also invites encouragement and accountability from others. You can also create small weekly challenges, such as practicing a new skill for 10 minutes every day, completing 1 extra task at work, or organizing a part of your home. By focusing on weekly goals, you create manageable steps that lead to measurable improvement over time. It's important to understand that progress is rarely perfectly linear. Some days you will do more, some days less. Some tasks may feel easier, while others feel difficult or frustrating. That's normal. The key is to notice even small positive changes and celebrate them, because each small win adds up over time. By doing this, you reinforce the idea that raising your personal standards is a journey, not a one-time effort, and that consistent action produces meaningful results. Now, I want you to reflect on your own life. Think about today, this week, or this month. What is one small win you can celebrate? Maybe it's completing a task you've been avoiding, speaking up in a conversation, or practicing a skill consistently. Take a moment to acknowledge it, write it down, or share it with someone you trust. Recognizing progress, even in small steps, strengthens your confidence, reinforces your standards, and reminds you that you are capable of more than you might think. By measuring progress and celebrating wins, you create a positive feedback loop. You notice growth, feel motivated, and are encouraged to continue taking intentional action. This approach not only helps you maintain high personal standards, but also makes the process of growth enjoyable and fulfilling. Remember, every small win is a step forward, a step toward the life you want to create, the person you want to become, and the standards you want to live by. Take pride in these moments because they are proof that your effort matters and that your journey toward higher standards is real and achievable. As we come to the end of this episode, it's a good moment to take a deep breath and reflect on what we've explored today. We started by looking closely at personal standards, what they are, why they matter, and how they shape every part of our lives, from our work to our relationships, and even the way we treat ourselves. We discussed the cost of low standards, showing that settling for less than we deserve can quietly limit our potential, create self-doubt, and prevent us from achieving the life we want. By understanding these consequences, we can start to see why raising our personal standards is not just a nice idea, but a necessary part of growth. We also explored the common barriers that often hold us back, such as fear of failure, perfectionism, self-doubt, societal pressure, and past setbacks. These obstacles are normal. Everyone faces them at some point. But awareness is the first step to overcoming them. By noticing what stops us, we can start to take intentional action, even if it's small at first. The journey toward higher standards begins in the mind. That's why we talked about the mindset shift from comfort to growth. Growth almost always requires discomfort, self-awareness, and consistent effort. By focusing on consistency over intensity, self-respect over approval, and progress over perfection, we can gradually transform our habits, actions, and results. Habits and routines are the tools that support this transformation. Setting clear expectations, creating supportive routines, using accountability, and limiting toxic influences helps embed higher standards into our daily lives. Even small, consistent actions can lead to remarkable changes over time. Remember the example of a simple evening routine that builds focus and confidence. It may seem small, but it demonstrates the power of alignment between intention and action. Likewise, embracing setbacks and learning from mistakes is an essential part of this journey. Failure is not a reason to give up. It is a guide. Each mistake or challenge provides a lesson and an opportunity to grow stronger, smarter, and more resilient. Resilience is not about never failing. It's about continuing forward, learning, and adjusting along the way. Measuring progress and celebrating wins completes the cycle. Growth can feel slow or invisible if we don't pay attention to small improvements. By journaling successes, sharing progress with someone you trust, or setting small weekly challenges, we reinforce positive habits and acknowledge that every step matters. Celebrating small wins boosts confidence and encourages further growth. It helps us see that personal standards are not a distant ideal. They are reflected in the small choices we make every day. Before we end, I want to leave you with a motivational reminder. Upgrading your personal standards isn't about being perfect. It's about honoring yourself, respecting your potential, and aiming higher, step by step. Every small choice to act intentionally, to improve, or to maintain consistency is a victory in itself. It's these consistent steps that build momentum and eventually lead to meaningful, lasting change. The journey may take time, and it may not always be easy, but each moment of effort matters and reflects your commitment to living with integrity and purpose. Tonight, take a moment to reflect. Think of one area in your life where you can raise your standard, no matter how small. Perhaps it's showing more patience, focusing more on a task, practicing a skill, or improving a habit. Then take one small action toward that standard tonight. It could be writing down your goal, taking a short step, or simply planning how you will approach it tomorrow. Small actions create a chain reaction that leads to bigger results. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope this episode inspires you to reflect, take action, and continue your journey of growth. Remember, personal standards are not about being perfect. They are about being intentional, consistent, and courageous. Take these ideas with you, apply them in your daily life, and notice the subtle but powerful changes that occur over time. I look forward to welcoming you back for the next episode, where we'll continue exploring ways to live intentionally, grow confidently, and reach our full potential. Until then, take care, be kind to yourself, and keep aiming higher.